You're living your life and you don't really see a point to it, right? There's like, I don't want to be one of these plebs that's just like eat, drink, and marry, like be captain of the football team. I can't be captain of the football team. Go to college, get some dead-end job, and then what? Like, what's the point of all of this? What's the point of all of the grind? And as we sort of ask ourselves, what's the point of this stupid grind, which, by the way, is produced by your brain, which we'll get to in a second, right? Because there's a lot of human beings out there, a lot of normies that are like all into the grind, and they're so like, they're like, oh, like I want to get a nice handbag, and I want to get this Instagram post, and I want to get this kind of fancy carrot ring, and then I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. And they're like these like people who are kind of these empty-headed fucking normie plebs who are living life. And then there's some of us who are like thinkers, right? Who look at this and we say, this life is empty. Your biggest problem is not that you're wrong, it's that you're right. And that you lack the necessary illusions of healthy psychological functioning. So this is crazy, right? So if y'all are like, oh my God, all these normies are deluding themselves with Gucci bags and Instagram, whatever the fuck, and like, you're not wrong. This is insane. So in order to be a psychologically healthy human being, you need a healthy layer of illusion about what the world is in order to function properly. If you don't see meaning and everything is shit, like, you're not wrong, you're right. The problem, though, is that even if you're right, it doesn't change the challenge that you face, right? Because now you've got to live in this world. It's not enjoyable. You're surviving. You're not thriving. And while the normies may be able to thrive because they have an illusion, you're, unfortunately, I'm sorry, going to have to work harder. So if you literally look at like a non-nihilistic person versus a nihilistic person, the amount of time that a nihilistic person spends in their own head is way higher. So they tend to be thinkers. So this also becomes really, really like functionally important, because if I'm stuck in my own head, there's sort of like this inverse correlation between being in my head and acting. Whereas if we think about all these like bots, right, who are just like, da, 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 I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. Isn't life fun and joyous and grand? And I'm going to go sit in the park and enjoy the sunshine, right? They're not stuck in their own head. They're out there like living life, whereas we're sort of trapped in our own head. And if we look at nihilistic philosophers, like, they were thinkers. And chances are you're a thinker too. The next thing to keep in mind is that this is what makes it so bad. So thinking in and of itself is not a problem. Even being stuck in your head in and of itself is not necessarily a problem. Maybe it correlates with less action, which is maybe a problem. It is not about waking up one day and asking yourself, what is the purpose of my life? It is changing the way that you interact with life so that your brain turns on in some ways, and then you'll fucking, I know this sounds insane, you will wake up one day and you'll be like, oh, I have meaning. Like, literally, that is the most common thing. You don't find the meaning. You give your brain the right building blocks so that it pieces together the meaning for you. Okay, so what are those building blocks? The first is to ask yourself, what makes life meaningless? Not that life is meaningless, okay? You have to ask yourself, what makes life meaningless? And it's kind of interesting, right? So it's kind of like life would have meaning, except this thing is in the way. And so if you ask yourself this question, and it's not an easy question to answer, because if you kind of think about it, like, you really have to like work towards answering this question. I would recommend that you go on like a 4-hour hike in a safe way or whatever, and really think about the question, what makes life meaningless? What is it that makes an absence of meaning in your life? And what you will find is that there will be some kind of vacuum, right? So your life may have meaning if you had this, or if you had this, or if you had this, but that answer won't be easily accessible, because then your mind will rebel against that and it'll say, oh, just because I have a partner doesn't mean that my life will have meaning. So be careful about asking that question in the way that you, I don't know if this makes sense, the way that you find an answer and then you'll discount the answer. That will be the ruminative default mode network thinking of your brain. You'll have an answer, but you'll immediately discount it. So go ahead and find the answer. Don't worry, you don't have to actually make it or anything like that yet. We'll get to that in a second. But this is a really important question to find a compass. The purpose of a compass is not to achieve something, it is to move in that direction, okay? Then we also know that there are a couple of things which are required to, not required, but basically required. Let's just use that word. required to have meaning in life. And the first is that human beings, in order for human beings to feel meaningful, we have to give something to life. So we can call this creativity, but what I literally mean is, like, if we think about what gives a human being's life meaning, it's like when I look out into the world, I have some kind of effect. I have some kind of impact. Like, literally, what is the meaning? What is the purpose of my life? The purpose can be represented by something outside that exists when I'm gone or when I'm not there. So for some people, meaning is like raising healthy kids. For some people, meaning is creating artwork or music or whatever, right? You have to leave your mark on the world, because if you have a mark on the world, you have an impact on the world, then it's hard to not feel like you have meaning. Now, that isn't the meaning. So this is where things get a little bit subtle. That itself is not the meaning. Like, making art is not the meaning. Remember, what we're doing is giving your brain building blocks. So literally, as you create stuff, okay, as you put yourself into the world, and I don't mean make an attempt at something, I mean have some manifestation of your will that exists in the world, meaning will follow. So think about what kind of impact you want to have in the world. I don't care. It doesn't have to be like a grand impact or anything like that, but each and every one of us have a desire to, like, make something. That's a core human desire. So think about what that is and take some step forward in that way. I'm not saying that the first step or even the 1,000th step will give you a sense of meaning. That is the building block that will then get composted by your brain and hopefully end you up with meaning. Second thing that we have to do is we have to receive things from life. So we have to give something to life and we have to receive something from life. And this is where a lot of the nihilistic people that I work with aren't really like receiving things from life. They're just existing. This is where we go back to something like go to an art museum and then like lay out on the lawn and just like enjoy what life has to give you. So try to savor life. Try to give what life is trying to offer you stuff. But as long as your head is trying to like I don't know how to say this, like as long as you're trying to min-max the dopaminergic extraction from your brain, you won't be able to savor life. And the third thing, and this is really important, is the one thing that you can truly control in life is your attitude towards what life sends your way. And what we tend to find in people who are nihilistic versus people who are not nihilistic is the attitude with which they receive things. So the next time that something bad happens to you or something good happens to you, pay attention to how you receive it. When something good happens to you, does some part of you say, oh yeah, this is going to be worthless. It's never going to be enough. It's one step in the right direction, but I have 1,000 directions to go? Is that how you're receiving life? Or when you have a setback, do you consider it a failure? Oh yeah, now that this thing happened, I'm never going to be successful. Do you take a setback as a failure? So really pay attention to the way that you are receiving life. My hope is that if you do these three things, have something that you give to life, have something that you receive from life, and pay attention to and hopefully alter the way that you receive what life gives you, then you will give your brain the building blocks to finding purpose.